Shalom, shalom, Israel Briefers. Welcome to another edition of the Israel Brief. And a special welcome to our new members, our new community members, and you know who you are. And welcome to our Israel Brief family. We really are a family here at the Israel Brief. And if you are first time to us, welcome. I am Rolene Marks. This is the Israel Brief, where we take a look at those top stories making headlines here in Israel. The stories you are never going to hear on CNN or Sky News or any of these channels that cover from a specific point of view. You're going to hear the news from an Israeli journalist, me, reporting and living on the ground. Now, we are brought to you in partnership with these guys, Lay of the Land, and a little bit more about where you can find Lay of the Land online a little later in the show. It is day 683 since the 7th of October. And as I mentioned on yesterday's show, we're getting closer and closer to the 700-day mark. And a reminder that there are still 50 hostages being held in absolute hell in Gaza. 683 days of torture, of starvation, of no sunlight, of no medical assistance, of no visits from the International Red Cross or any other humanitarian body, and 683 days of being relegated to the end of a press release by world leaders. Here on the Israel Brief, we will remind you on a daily basis that our hostages must stay at the forefront of global consciousness. So let's take a look at those top stories. And everyone is asking the question, do we have a deal for a ceasefire and hostage release? Now, there were meetings between the various Palestinian factions over the last couple of days, and sources close to Hamas informed Al Jazeera, which is the Qatari news channel, that Hamas had accepted the proposal. So we don't know too many details about this particular proposal, but we do know that this proposal suggests the release of 10 living hostages in exchange for about between 140 to 150 Palestinian prisoners. Now, to be very clear, these are prisoners who have committed crimes and have blood on their hands. Some of these prisoners were even participants in the 7th of October massacre. So I don't want to hear anybody say it's a hostage exchange. It's not a hostage exchange. It is a hostage for Palestinian prisoners who have gone through the legal system here in Israel and are facing strong sentences. Now, the Qataris earlier today said that there is no time to waste, that there must be a ceasefire. What they neglected to mention in their statement were the hostages whose lives, the 20 that still remain alive, their lives are in the balance. Every second counts. And of course, we want to bring the other 30 home for a dignified burial, which is their human right. Now, what is interesting is we haven't heard a response from the American and the Israeli negotiators. We do know that Israel has received Hamas's response. But interestingly, yesterday, President Trump took to Truth Social and tweeted out that the hostages will be free when Hamas is confronted and destroyed. Also interesting last night was the Prime Minister of Israel, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, saying that we are going ahead with plans to capture Gaza City, and we are putting Hamas under immense pressure. Israel's position is very clear. We don't want staggered releases of hostages. We want all of our hostages released. And this seems to be a popular stance amongst the civilians in Israel for a number of reasons. First of all, it removes the hostages, which are Hamas's last remaining bargaining chip. It also puts an end to the psychological torture that Hamas put on the people of Israel, and especially the hostage families, and takes out their ability to decide which hostages are more important. Time is of the essence. We want every single hostage released. And the world should be putting the pressure on Hamas to release the hostages and not Israel to agree to a ceasefire. The BBC are at it again. I mean, I tell you, they should have their own section of the Israel Brief where I have a go at them. So the BBC in the last couple of days have had to amend a story that they put out at least 3 times. Now, this is the tragic story of a 20-year-old Palestinian woman, Mara Abu Zakhri, who was evacuated by COGAT, that is the IDF unit responsible for humanitarian aid and coordination in the Gaza Strip. She was evacuated from Gaza along with many children and civilians who are facing life-threatening diseases. Abu Zakhri, who was 20 years old, was suffering from a very aggressive form of leukemia. One of the symptoms was a drastic weight loss. Now, the BBC put out that she had died first of malnutrition, then of emaciation. I don't think you actually die of emaciation, but according to her medical records, and these are Italian medical records because she was evacuated to a hospital in Pisa, she died of a cardiac arrest as a result of her leukemia, her very aggressive form of leukemia. The Gaza Cancer Center also listed leukemia. COGAT listed leukemia. And if the BBC had bothered to do proper journalism, instead of deflect to their reflexive posture, which is to routinely demonize Israel, they would have not lied to their viewers and their readers, and they would have printed that she had died of leukemia. Now, what is interesting is that the Free Press have done an expose where they have shown that all the images that are doing the rounds in the media of children supposedly being starved to death as part of this latest blood libel against Israel all have congenital diseases. So I urge you all to check out the Free Press. It's on their website. It's probably on their YouTube channel as well, where they go through each story of each child from Gaza who is being exploited by the mainstream media to push this narrative, which is part of Hamas's propaganda to accuse Israel of systematically starving children. And we ask you, our Israel Brief community, whenever you see this, to confront the misinformation and to set the record straight. Now, there seems to be a war of words brewing between Australia and Prime Minister Netanyahu. Yesterday, I brought you the updates that the foreign minister had suspended the residency visas of Australia's representative to the Palestinian Authority. Now, this follows Australia's revoking of entry visas for lawmakers Ayelet Shaked and for Simcha Rothman, and also Australia's recognition of a Palestinian state. Now, Foreign Minister Penny Wong accused Prime Minister Netanyahu of isolating Israel. And I just want to say something on this point, because there seems to be a new tactic that has been used by various countries, including Denmark, in the last couple of days, blaming Prime Minister Netanyahu. You don't have to like the Prime Minister, and goodness knows there are a million different opinions here in Israel. Everybody's got their own opinion of the Prime Minister, but this inherent singling out by friendly countries, because Denmark, Australia are considered very strong allies of the State of Israel, for a democratically elected leader is really, really repugnant. And as Foreign Minister Gideon Saar said in an interview with a Danish newspaper, he said, it's not just an attack on our Prime Minister, it's an attack on us as Israelis, because whether we voted for him or not, or like him or not, he is still our democratically elected leader. Well, now, Prime Minister Netanyahu hit back, tweeting out some choice words for Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, saying that history will remember Prime Minister Albanese as a weak leader who betrayed his ally Israel and abandoned Australia's Jews. Now, them's fighting words, guys, them's fighting words. And just on the subject of Penny Wong, Wong was one of many foreign dignitaries who visited Israel in the weeks and months following the atrocities of October the 7th. And she was the only one who did not go down to the communities that were affected. In my opinion, and this is my opinion, she probably did not want to confront the depravity and the atrocities committed by Hamas and other Palestinian terror factions in those communities. And let me tell you, I was on one of those communities on day 360, just before the 1-year anniversary, and you could still smell the stench of death. I've been down to the south, as you know, many times. I've reported from the south, and in my opinion, to not go to those communities, to not see the atrocities, to not sit with survivors, to not listen to them, to not empathize with them, to not hold them, to not look them in the eyes, Foreign Minister Wong, is akin to going to a house of mourning and not issuing or giving your condolences to the bereaved families. It was a major slap in the face to the people of Israel and especially to the victims. And I think that you neglected to go down there so that you wouldn't have to deal with the atrocities committed by Hamas, and it would inform your foreign policy against Israel, which has grown increasingly hostile. And finally, let's end the headlines on some positive news, and Israel is back in Africa. As we speak, our foreign minister is winging his way to Zambia, where he will inaugurate the Israeli embassy. He will also meet with Zambian officials, including the foreign minister, the president, and the speaker of the parliament. And en route to Zambia, he will stop off in Ethiopia, where he will meet with his Ethiopian counterpart in the capital, Addis Ababa. So those are your top stories for today. Let's take a look at the audience question, and it comes from Alex in Johannesburg, who says, why does nobody speak about Israeli children? Well, you know, when this was asked to me, I thought I have to make a note of it for the Israel brief, because it's a painful reminder that while the world is focused on Palestinian children, as they should be, because none of us, including us here in Israel, want to see Palestinian children suffer in any way, shape or form. But the world has forgotten Israel's children. There have been no visits from UNICEF to meet with Israeli orphans or survivors of the 7th of October, or those that were taken captive by Hamas and other terror factions. There has been no press coverage to sit with them, especially those whose parents or siblings were murdered on October the 7th, and hear from them, hear how they're doing. We also have hundreds of orphans who have lost a parent who has fallen in defense of the state of Israel in the last 22 months or in other terror attacks. Israel's children for the last 22 months have lived with immense pain. They've lived through war. They've lived through wars within wars. It shouldn't be that our little children have words like khatuf, which means hostage, or mamad, which means shelter, in their lexicon. 2-year-old children shouldn't know what to do when they hear the siren. And not to forget how many children on Israel's side have been killed, not just on the 7th of October, but in the terror attacks that have ensued, as well as the wars with Hezbollah and with Iran that have ensued. UEFA had no signage for our 12 Druze children who were murdered by a rocket that was that killed them on a sunny July afternoon last year when they were playing soccer in a field. The world has forgotten them. The world has forgotten the Bibi's children, whose shiny, beautiful copper hair we remember so clearly as they were taken with their angelic mother, Shiri Bibas, and laid to rest earlier this year. The world has forgotten the children killed just 2 months ago during the Iranian attacks on Israeli cities. Well, we here are going to speak for Israel's children. And to the world that remains silent, all the celebrities, all the media, everybody who remains silent, shame on you. Our children are valuable too. So with that said, I'm going to kick my soapbox back under the desk and remind you about where you can find us on social media. So you can find our website at www.layoftheland.online. Our YouTube channel is right here at the Israel Brief, and if you like our content and my rantings on, please hit that subscribe button and the little alarm bell, which will notify you every time we post a brief. We're on Facebook at Lottel's site, on LinkedIn at Rolene Marks, on Instagram at Rolene_Marks, on X at Lay of the Land 5. And guys, God bless you all. I love you. Thank you for keeping me company every single Monday to Thursday. And I will see you again tomorrow. Bye for now.